You ever wonder why some places just feel haunted? Well, the Appalachian Mountains are definitely one of those places. The whole region is just steeped in ghost stories, weird creatures, and all kinds of supernatural legends. So today, we're going to dig in and investigate exactly why these hills and hollers are such a hotbed for American folklore. To really get the stories, you first have to get the land itself. I mean, the Appalachians aren't just old, they're ancient. We're talking they rose up before the Atlantic Ocean was even a thing, way before dinosaurs walked the earth. They are, and this is literal, one of the oldest mountain ranges on the entire planet. And you know, that incredible age, it really sets a certain kind of stage. And that's the big question, isn't it? What is it about this specific place that makes it so perfect for these kinds of tales? Well, we're going to break it down, clue by clue, and see if we can get to the bottom of this whole mystery. And the legends here get incredibly specific and, frankly, pretty weird. Take the Devil's Tramping Ground in Chatham County. It's this perfect 40-foot circle where almost nothing grows. The local lore says that's where the devil himself walks in circles at night, just thinking. People have even tried to put big logs or rocks in his path, only to find them tossed aside by the next morning. But hey, it's not all demonic and scary. Long before any European settlers showed up, these mountains were home to some really powerful indigenous mythologies. The Cherokee tell stories of the Nunahee, these immortal, invisible beings who lived inside the mountains and would often help out lost travelers. This really hints that the magic of this place runs deep, through many, many cultures. So, our first clue is right there in the landscape itself. The physical environment of Appalachia it's like a character in its own right, and it's got a very specific and, a very spooky personality. Just picture this. You're deep in these woods at night. The trees are so thick they can completely swallow the moonlight. Then you hear a sound you can't place. Maybe it's a bobcat, which sounds uncannily like a woman screaming. You get this deep, profound feeling that you are not alone, a sensation some people actually call sylvan dread. In an environment this powerful and this intimidating, it's really no wonder the imagination starts running wild. Okay, let's move on to our second clue, and this one is all about the people. The unique mix of cultures that have called these mountains home is absolutely key to understanding its folklore.
So this right here, this is the foundation. Before any settlers got there, the Cherokee people had this incredibly rich spiritual world that was deeply tied to the land. The Nunahee, for instance, they weren't monsters, they were protectors. There are stories about them leading the Cherokee to safety inside the mountains to escape horrible tragedies, like the Trail of Tears.
So you've got this foundational layer of indigenous mythology, right? Then, in the 18th and 19th centuries, you get these waves of European immigrants, especially Scots-Irish, Germans, and Welsh. And they didn't come empty-handed. They brought their own baggage, their own superstitions, their own stories of fairies and spirits from the old country. And in the isolation of the mountains, these two streams of folklore, they started to mix and merge, creating something totally new. And that brings us perfectly to clue number 3. How did all these blended stories survive and change over time? Through the sheer power of storytelling. I mean, in a place defined by isolation and hardship, telling stories wasn't just a way to pass the time, it was a lifeline. And the star of so many of those tales is a character named Jack. Now, you might know him from Jack and the Beanstalk, but in Appalachia, man, he is a local hero. He's not strong, he's not rich, but he is clever. He gets by on his wits, outsmarting giants and witches in all sorts of trouble. These Jack tales, they were so much more than entertainment. They were basically survival guides, teaching the value of being resilient and clever in a land that really demanded both. This whole tradition was kept alive by these master storytellers, or folksayers, like Ray Hicks from Beech Mountain, North Carolina. People would seriously come from all over just to hear him spin a tale. He learned them from his grandfather, who learned them from his, stretching back generations. It just shows you how these stories became part of the very fabric of family life. I just love this quote from Ray Hicks. It shows that storytelling wasn't just for after the work was done. It was part of the work itself. Telling stories made these long, hard jobs, like shucking corn, bearable. It was a tool for community, for teaching, and just for getting through the day. And that power is still around. These old folk traditions directly inspired 20th century writers like Manly Wade Wellman. His character, Silver John, is this wandering musician with a silver string guitar who fights the exact same kinds of supernatural critters from Appalachian folklore. See, the tradition doesn't die, It just finds new storytellers. So we've got the land, the cultures, and the stories. But there is one final crucial ingredient: real-life history. Because a lot of the time, the most stubborn ghost stories are just history that refuses to be forgotten.
Okay, let's just take Asheville, North Carolina as a case study. The ghost of a young woman at the Battery Park Hotel, well, she was the victim of a very famous, very real murder there back in 1936. The ghosts that are said to leap from the top of the Jackson building, they're believed to be businessmen who lost everything in the 1929 stock market crash. The sounds of battle at Riverside Cemetery, yep, that was the site of a Civil War skirmish. Every single haunting is a direct echo of a real tragedy. And one of the most famous examples has to be the Highland Hospital. In 1948, a horrible fire just ripped through the building. 9 women were killed, and one of them was Zelda Fitzgerald, the wife of the author F. Scott Fitzgerald. It was a national tragedy, and to this day, the site is considered one of the most haunted places in the state, a legend born directly from a real, documented disaster. Okay, so we've looked at the land, the people, the stories, and the history. So how does it all fit together? What's the real answer to our question? Well, the most important thing to get is that it's not just one thing. It's a perfect storm. It's like a recipe for a haunted land. You start with a landscape that feels ancient and mysterious. Then you add a rich mix of both indigenous and European folklore. You let that simmer for generations through a really strong storytelling tradition. And finally, you season it with the ghosts of real historical events. It's this unique combination that makes Appalachia such fertile ground for the supernatural. And in the end, it really leaves you with a fascinating question. Are these tales just creative ways to explain the unexplainable, to pass down history, to warn people of danger? Or is it something more? As one person put it, maybe it's not just people telling stories. Maybe it's the mountains themselves remembering.